Yeah, g'day YouTubers. Tinker O'Toole again with another video. Today we're going to talk about setting your cutting tip, your cutting tool at the correct height of the workpiece. Now, generally speaking, your cutting tool should be cutting right at the center line. But in a lot of cases you need to be slightly higher than the center line. Why is that you ask? Well, probably one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and it depends on your lathe, is deflection of the cutting tool. And what I mean by that is that, especially if you're taking a deep cut, it's putting a lot of downward pressure on the actual cutting tool. And if you're facing off and you don't set it the correct height, you'll end up with a little nipple. And that little nipple, if you keep on pushing into the workpiece, it can snap off the carbide tip. Done that many times. So tool height is extremely important. And one of the quickest ways that you can set your tool height without guessing is using a steel ruler. And we'll just basically have a look at that method. Okay, so if we actually have a look, you can see this steel ruler here. So that's just a matter, you've got your workpiece in your chuck, you bring your tool in, your cutter, whether it's a carbide bit or whether it's high-speed steel, you put your steel ruler against the workpiece and you just wind it in so that it touches the steel ruler. The steel ruler should be sitting something like that. It's a little bit vertical, but it's leaning a little bit to that way. Now, it faces off without leaving a little nipple. So remember what I said before, that if this gib here and this gib here, if the tolerances are out a little bit and you haven't tightened it up a little bit and the tooling is sticking a little bit further than what it should, and with a little bit of force from the lathe and the cutting, you'll get deflection and you'll find out that it will push down. Everything's got tolerance in it. So before you start to sort of blame your tooling or blame this or blame that, make sure that these gib screws on the cross slide and the compound slide, that it's not loose. Because if it's loose, it's going to give problems. Nothing worse than having everything loose. Make sure that everything's reasonably tight and your compound slide and your slide are nipped up and there's no slack in them. So therefore, that is probably the most and quickest, easiest method to set up your tooling height. For those that are not familiar with the ruler method, we'll just sort of demonstrate that again. So there's the workpiece, there's the cutting tip. Look, all as you do is just put the ruler in there and just tighten that up so that it sits against the ruler, and go view it from the front. And as I said, if it's leaning slightly forward, I wouldn't worry about that, especially if you're facing off. You might find out you could have your tooling height a little bit less for general cutting. But either way, just be aware that if you are facing off and you get a little tiny nipple, don't force it because you'll snap off the tip of the carbide bit. At least on high-speed steel, if you actually damage the front, you can just re-grind it again on the bench grinder. So yeah, I guess that's the only advantage of having high-speed steel. This particular carbide bit here, you can see it's snapped off, the edges are snapped off. This typically happened during facing off, if you're not careful. I just dropped it then. So yeah, just be aware that, yeah, get your tool height correct. This method here with the ruler is probably the best method to give the best results. I hope that information helps. These videos are really only designed for the beginner. All the machinists know about this rule, so yeah, purely aimed at the beginner and hobbyist. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.